Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are going to look at the Lewis and Clark documents. My goal is to make this video in, 10 to 12 minutes, okay? So I'm going to go really quick. I'm going to try to stick to the basics here. I'm not going to go through every single thing that could be highlighted, and let's see if we can get through this so you don't have to watch a video for 20 minutes of your time. So Lewis and Clark, so just a quick recap. In the 5.2 notes, we talked about how after President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, buys that Louisiana territory from France, the area of land that more than or almost doubles the size of the United States, he wants to find out what's out there. And so he sends out an expedition led by Lewis and Clark to find out what's out there. And so we're going to look at some evidence that goes along with that expedition today. If you look at the top, the guiding question for today, were Lewis and Clark fair to the Native Americans they met on their journey? That's what I'm focusing on. We are looking at if they were fair, if they treated the Native Americans fair or unfair. We could also look at that as saying, were they respectful or were they disrespectful to the Native Americans, okay? And in the instructions there it says, highlight in blue any evidence that shows Lewis and Clark were fair to the Native Americans. So blue, we're going to highlight that. And highlight in red any evidence that shows Lewis and Clark were unfair to the Native Americans or disrespectful to the Native Americans. Now guys, I'm just going to say one thing here. A lot of the evidence could go either way. It depends on how you interpret it, okay? So I'm going to highlight in certain things, in certain colors, blue or red. You might highlight something that I highlight in red, you might highlight it in blue, okay? Because you can interpret these things differently, and I'll kind of talk about that. Let's get started, okay? Document A, Jefferson's letter to Meriwether Lewis. So this is Thomas Jefferson, the president, writing to Meriwether Lewis, the leader of the expedition. He says, it will be useful to acquire what knowledge you can of the state of morality, religion, and information among them, as it may better enable those who may endeavor to civilize and instruct them. Couple of things in this first sentence. He's saying, let's find out what they're like. What is their morality like? What is their sense of right and wrong? Okay, are they good people? What's their religion like? And then as you find out this information, it's going to help those people who want to civilize them and instruct them. Okay, so this is a perfect example of how you can interpret it different ways. Some people might look at that as, hey, they want to help them. They want to instruct them. They want to teach them. They want to help them learn what they know. You could also look at this and say, whoa, that's really disrespectful to say that you're going to civilize them. You're saying that they're uncivilized? Okay, and so you have to determine if that's a respectful or a disrespectful thing, or a fair or unfair thing. All right, in all your interactions with the natives, treat them in the most friendly and conciliatory manner. Conciliatory means like kind, okay? Treat them in a nice way, friendly and conciliatory. So I think we could probably agree on that one, that is evidence that they wanted to treat them fairly. Assure them that the purpose of your journey is innocent. Now that, on first look, we would probably say, okay, they're treating them fairly. You could also say, though, he's saying that President Jefferson is saying, tell them that the purpose is innocent. He doesn't actually say if it is innocent. He says, tell them that. Make them acquainted with our wish to be neighborly, friendly, and useful to them, and to trade with them. So he wants to be friendly with them again, be neighborly, trade with them, find out what articles would be most desirable for both of us to trade. Okay, that's probably evidence of treating them pretty fairly. Let's trade. Let's find out what they want. Let's see what we want, and perhaps we can trade with them. If a few of their influential chiefs wish to visit us, arrange such a visit for them. If any of them wish to have some of their young people raised by us and taught things that may be useful to them, we will receive, instruct, and take care of them. Okay, that sentence, again, I think they probably have good intentions. Like, if any of their children or their young people want to be taught and instructed, then tell them we can do that. Now, another person might look at that and say, they're kind of being a little bit arrogant here, thinking that they have all these things that they can teach to these people. So you could look at that sentence either way. Such a mission, whether of influential chiefs or of young people, would give some security to your own party. Now that sentence right there, you could definitely say, okay, there it is. There's the reason that they are going to be kind to them, because they want security for their own party. They want to be safe. So they're basically going to try to befriend them so that they can be safe. So you could definitely look at that as possible. And again, it's your call in the end. You could look at that as possible evidence that they're treating them unfairly or disrespectfully. Carry with you some smallpox medicine and instruct and encourage them to use it. All right, well, that seems like a pretty fair thing. They know that many Native Americans have gotten sick and have died from diseases such as smallpox, and they're saying, President Jefferson is saying, hey, take some medicine and instruct them to use it so that they don't get sick. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Document B, diary entry of Meriwether Lewis. This morning at daylight, the Indians got up and crowded around the fire. Jay Fields, who was on post, had carelessly laid his gun down behind him. One of the Indians, the fellow to whom I had given the medal last evening, slipped behind Jay Fields and took his gun and his brother's gun. Okay, so you see what's happening? The Indians are around the fire. One of the people in the expedition carelessly laid his gun down, and one of the Indians took the gun and his brother's gun. Couple of things in there. He had given the medal. This was the Indian that they had given a medal to. Okay, they gave him a medal. That's cool. Who doesn't want a medal? So maybe that's evidence that they treated them fairly. They were giving them gifts. The Indians took the gun. At the same instant, two other Indians advanced and seized the guns of Dreyer and myself. Jay Fields, seeing this, turned about to look for his gun and saw the fellow just running off with it and his brothers. He called to his brother, who instantly jumped up and pursued the Indian with him. So they're going to chase down their guns that the Indians had just taken from them. They overtook him. Our Fields, as he seized his gun, took his gun back from the Indian, stabbed the Indian to the heart with his knife. Okay, so they murdered an Indian. Now, what did the Indian do? The Indian stole a gun. They stole his gun and his brother's gun. So I guess you have to decide there what kind of evidence that is. Were they justified in stabbing him because he stole the gun? You also have to think about, on an expedition out in the wilderness, a gun is how you survived. So perhaps it was that important, and maybe that was justified. You could also look at that piece of evidence and say, well, he stole a gun. He didn't deserve to die for that. So again, that's evidence that you have to decide. The fellow ran about 15 steps and fell dead. Dreyer, who was awake, saw the Indian take hold of his gun and instantly jumped up and seized it. His jumping up and crying, "Let go of my gun," awakened me. I saw Dreyer in a scuffle with the Indian for his gun. Dreyer asked me if he might not kill the fellow, which I also forbid, as the Indian did not appear to wish to kill us. So Dreyer's basically asking, can I kill the Indian? And he says, no, it doesn't look like the Indian's trying to kill us. Don't do it. So again, that perhaps is evidence that they treated them respectfully and fairly. As soon as they found us all in possession of our arms, the Indians ran. So they got their guns back and the Indians ran. We left one of our horses and took 4 of the best of those of the Indians. Okay, so they took horses from the Indians. You could look at that as perhaps being unfair to the Native Americans. They're stealing from them. While the men were preparing the horses, I put 4 shields and 2 bows and quivers of arrows which had been left by the Indians on the fire. I also retook the flag, but left the medal about the neck of the dead man, that they might be informed of who they were. Okay, so they took horses. They took the bows and the arrows. Okay, so perhaps treating them unfairly. They're stealing from them. They don't want them to be armed, right? They're now basically enemies with these Indians. And then they left the medal around the neck of the dead man. Perhaps that's a warning saying, this is what's going to happen to you. Okay, are you guys getting it? Like a lot of this evidence, it's like, I can't tell you if it's fair or unfair. Okay, some of it, it's not black and white. Like some of it you have to make a call. How do you interpret it? Okay, I don't want you to just do what I say it says. I want you to interpret it. All right, next one. Document C, diary entry of William Clark about Sacagawea. Some people say Sacagawea. So let's read about that. We took our leave of Shabano, his Shoshone wife, that's Sacagawea, and their child, who had accompanied us on our route to the Pacific Ocean in the capacity of interpreter. So Sacagawea specifically was their interpreter. We offered to convey him down to the Illinois if he chose to go. He declined proceeding, so they offered to take him down to the Illinois. So they want to help him, right? They want to take him. He declined proceeding, observing that he had no acquaintance or prospects of making a living below, and must continue to live in the way that he had done. So he declines their offer. I offered to take his little son, a beautiful, promising child who is 19 months old, to which they both, himself and wife, were willing, provided the child had been weaned. Okay, so here they're saying they're not like trying to kidnap the son. They offered to take the son so that that they could teach him. Okay, so again, they have good intentions. You could look at that piece of evidence as fair or unfair, depending on how you interpret it. Were they had good intentions, perhaps, but is that disrespectful to think that they can raise the child better? They observed that in 1 year the boy would be sufficiently old to leave his mother, and he would then take him to me if I would be so friendly as to raise the child for him in such a manner as I thought proper, to which I agreed. So they agreed that they're going to raise his child. That could be fair or unfair, as we just talked about. Okay. Document D, Meriwether Lewis' speech to the Oto. That's a tribe. Okay, this is a speech that he gives to this tribe of Indians. Children, you are to live in peace with all the white men, for they are the great chief's children. Okay, so right away here, we could look at the fact that he's calling this group of Native Americans children. We could look at that perhaps as disrespectful and unfair. It also could just maybe be like something that got lost in translation. Maybe he's not trying to say that, but if he is, just saying children could be disrespectful. Like, hey, I'm better than you. We know more than you. You are to live in peace with the white men, for they are the great chief's children. When he says that, he's talking the great chief. He's talking about the president. He's talking about Thomas Jefferson. Neither wage war against the red men, your neighbors, for they are equally his children, and he is bound to protect them. So don't fight against other Native Americans. Children, do these things which your great father advises, and be happy, lest by one false step you should bring upon your nation the displeasure of your great father, the great chief of the 17 great nations of America. Again, he's talking about the president, who would consume you as the fire consumes the grass of the plains. well, that's a little harsh, right? He's saying, like, don't make a false step. Listen, we're going to protect you. We're going to be here for you. But if you make one false step, you're going to be burned, okay? So that's a little bit harsh there. We could probably say that might be disrespectful or unfair. Or maybe you're making the argument that, hey, they're just saying, you know, just let's have peace and then we won't have any problems. The mouths of all the rivers which the traders bring goods to you are in his possession, President Jefferson's possession. And if you displease him, he could at pleasure shut them up and prevent his traders from coming among you. But it is not the wish of your great father to injure you. We don't want to hurt you. On the contrary, he is now pursuing the measures best calculated to ensure your happiness. Do you get the gist of this? He's saying, look, we want to get along. We want to make sure you're happy. But don't you make one false step or you will be hurt. Okay? He's kind of threatening them, but he's also saying we want peace. So the way I highlighted this, or any of these, might be different than the way you highlighted them. Okay? Don't be afraid to trust your opinion on what evidence is fair or unfair, as long as you're able to back it up.